Welcome everyone, I'm Alexander Mihalja, and today we have one of the industry leaders, Tengo Meskhi, co-founder and CEO of Conceptdigital. Welcome Tengo, how are you doing today?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Alex.
Awesome, and I'm excited to have you on the podcast today as well, and I'm sure you're going to be of great value for the audience. Now, before we dive in, could you give us a quick overview of what Conceptdigital does?
Absolutely. So, Concept Digital has multiple facets. Essentially, we help companies to build digital products or deliver digital transformations. And to break that down, essentially, what we mean by build digital products is either help provide the staffing, the talent required to do that, essentially via outstaffing or by outsourced headhunting. So we can help companies either find the right talent for them through us, or we can help them find them so that they can hire them themselves. And alternatively, we have our own engineers, designers, developers, and program managers who can actually build whether it's a web app, mobile app, AI, or Web3 solution to solve these problems. And these can be anything from short-term rental platforms. They could be crypto token launches. They can be AI agents, which is an interesting new field that we're pushing very hard in. And then on the flip side, we're talking about digital transformations. This is more for our enterprise and larger business clients who understand that technology can massively improve their productivity. But it's about understanding where they are on the maturity cycle when it comes to data. Are they AI ready in terms of their data quality? Do they have the digital and payments ecosystem set up, especially for banking and e-commerce clients? Because, of course, payments can massively improve the effectiveness and efficiency of the business. The architecture and the infrastructure that a business runs on is, of course, super important. We do assessments and guide how that should be transformed into the next level, the more modern level, whether they're using cloud, etc. So we do digital transformation assessments, create plans for the future, and then help them implement the changes that are required to make that happen.
Okay, that's really fascinating. And basically, what inspired you to create Concept Digital? Was there a specific moment or experience that sparked this journey?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very organic journey, actually. So I began my career as actually a programmer myself after graduating engineering at Cambridge. And so my first really hands-on experience was working on the BBC iPlayer Android application. So I understood how to code. I then moved into finance and did some portfolio management, but very quickly realized I enjoyed being between business and tech to understand how can tech be used for the most effective and efficient business applications. And that was during my time at McKinsey Digital in London, where I worked for a bunch of different Fortune 500 and FTSE 100 companies, helping them improve their digital processes. So I got some great experience working on the BBC iPlayer app and then continuing my work through finance. But I was really curious about the angle between business and technology, using technology to improve businesses. And I got some great experience at McKinsey Digital in London, working for Fortune 500 and FTSE 100 companies, helping them with their digital transformations. One of the most interesting projects was actually the first one. It was one of my favorites, and that was working for a large Swiss pharmaceutical company. They understood that they needed to reduce the time spent on clinical trials because once you have the patent for the drug, you have the clinical trials, and then you can release it to the public, and then a maximum altogether of 15 years before your patent runs
Yeah.
out, usually. And so they wanted to reduce the amount of clinical trials to reduce the time to market. And so we helped develop an AI tool that actually picked the best hospitals for them to choose their trial patients in order to get through the clinical trial as quickly and efficiently as possible. And the AI was able to use lots of interesting pieces of data. For example, the Google Maps ratings of hospitals was actually an indicator on how quickly you can find the patients there for certain diseases like asthma. And so this meant that asthma drugs wouldn't take 5 years necessarily; they could take 3 years to go to market, which is a huge benefit for patients as well. So a super interesting use case that benefited the company and, of course, the patients and the users in this case. And then from there, I explored different areas: pharmaceuticals, healthcare, banking, AI, and I ended up on a project for the Bank of Georgia, which is the biggest retail bank in the country of Georgia, which is a digital transformation from scratch. It was the first time it had been done at such a large scale in the region, and it was a very interesting challenge because there was also the talent challenge of how do you find the people who understand how to actually work in an agile way with an agile mindset. And so that
Yeah.
was an interesting level of upskilling the business side as well as the IT side of the company. And so it was during those experiences I kind of saw there was a huge opportunity for first of all, geographical arbitrage, because there was great tech talent in East Europe that I saw could be doing incredible projects internationally. And secondly, the need of digital transformation for lots of businesses became very, very clear to me. And so that's why it was in 2020, just over 5 years ago, that I founded Concept Digital with the aim of helping solve that for clients around the world.
Okay, and for example, looking back, what would you wish you've done differently in those early days?
That's a good question. It's a very good question. I think the main learning for me is really focusing on having a holistic view. I wouldn't say that we didn't do that necessarily, but I think there were opportunities that we could have done that more. So in terms of when I say solving solutions, there were a couple of times when the client came to us organically, knowing that we'd have done great work, and they said that
Yep.
we want to build this, but we kind of took them for their word. And actually, what really happened was during the project, we found out that actually there were some stakeholders who either disagreed with the project, or the real business objective behind what they were trying to build was could have been solved in a different and better way. And so that kind of led to maybe later conflicts, or actually led to some projects being shelved, when if we'd known, if we dug deeper into what the real business objective was, then we could have helped solve that business objective rather than just build what we thought was a
Yeah,
product
makes
that we
sense.
wanted.
Okay, and because you mentioned this, how did your experience at McKinsey and Bank of Georgia shape your approach to digital transformation?
Yeah, that's essentially where I was made. So a huge thanks goes out to both of those companies where I learned a huge deal. One of the things that McKinsey really taught is the importance of change management. So no matter what amazing slides and recommendations you come up with, you have to have a very clear change plan in place to make it work. So one of those things is having a lighthouse project, essentially the first project where you put a lot of resources to make sure that it's successful, so that then you know that the follow-on projects with the transformation are also successful, and that becomes a guiding light of how things can be done. So that's an example of like a change management pillar, which makes things work. And then on the Bank of Georgia side, the I mentioned the upskilling of both the business stakeholders and the tech stakeholders was critical to make it work, in terms of like understanding culture wise, communication wise, do they understand each other? Because without cross functional teams, digital transformations are very hard to make work. And so you need to have these people speaking the same language, which often means teaching the business people some techie things, and the techie people more of the business outlook of their
Right.
business.
Okay, and also, could you share the story of your first client, Rex, and how that organic connection of a birthday party led to multiple service models?
Absolutely. So that's, yeah, it's very, again, organic and interesting way that happened. I had originally met Jonathan, who is the CEO of Rex, and now at my time in Cambridge, and then I knew he went to McKinsey, but in Berlin. And we actually met at a mutual friend's birthday party. We were catching up with how things were going. We both mentioned that we'd left McKinsey, and he mentioned that he was starting this new business, a digital enabled vet clinic chain, where their insight was that although vets are great at looking after cats and dogs, they may not necessarily be good at running businesses. They don't have MBAs, they're not business professionals. So these guys, him and his business partner, started this with the idea to use technology and other methods for efficiency and operational excellence, and then they'd bring in the vets for service delivery. And so they needed a tech partner from day one, very organically. You know, I mentioned that I was helping to grow Bank of Georgia from about 100 tech staff to over 400 in the 2 years that I was there. And so I got to meet some incredible talent, and we were very able to essentially create a project out of that, to understand, you know, this is the MVP that we're trying to build for. I set a clear time frame of 3 months that this is what we want to achieve. Assess exactly what's the best way to build this in terms of technology stack, e-commerce, triage, and booking platform, how that should all be laid out. And we were able to essentially build up a team that was a super sharp, super incisive, quick kind of drive to a clear MVP in those 3 months. And then off the back of that, they were able to raise 5 million euros of seed funding. And since then, they've been growing and growing. They brought on their own CTO. They have a large tech team now themselves, but they've grown to now 7 branches and expanded to Hamburg, and they're doing amazing, amazing in the vet space. So that was super interesting, very kind of like organic, natural way that things began for Concept Digital.
Yeah, of course, of course. And because you mentioned this, how was your process of scaling the Bank of Georgia IT team from 100 to 400 people?
A lot of interviews. So we met a lot of people, and the recruiting team were essential in doing this. So there was fortunately a high influx of tech talent happening at the time. I think people around 2018, 2019 would become more and more aware that tech was going to be the future. And if you wanted to future proof your business, you needed to, or future proof your career, you needed to actually upskill and learn at least the basics of coding and programming and how tech works. So we did a lot of different things. We reskilled a lot of people from the business as well. So there are some people in the business who are interested in learning, and so we helped. There was actually internal like internship and training programs that we helped do that for the staff that we knew could handle it and would work well. And then we also had a huge program, an internship lideratori. So it's basically like it's about being a leader as well as an intern. And so that was essentially finding the best talent from universities, inviting a huge amount of them in, and then having them run through these programs where they learn about, through a rotation, the different areas of the business, as well as the different areas of developing digital products, including testing, customer support, to development, and solution architecture as well. So there's a huge drive of both internal reskilling and upskilling from more junior students, and then of course a huge amount of just interviewing lots and lots of candidates from where we could find them. Just of course LinkedIn was a big source of that, and then of course Facebook as well. We were able to find a lot of candidates, and we've taken those same learnings to our own internal practices now at Conceptdigital, because we now help hire great staff for other companies, and so those
Mhm.
processes are still beneficial to us today. We've honed them, we refined them, but essentially the foundations are the same.
Yeah, interesting one. And walk us through how Concept Digital addresses these challenges. What makes your approach unique?
So there's multiple things I think we do which is different, and ways how we kind of stand out from the crowd. So of course we benefit from my experience and also the experience of one of the co-founders, who's called Zura Zagania. So Zura was essentially the CTO of the Revolut of Georgia and East Europe. Essentially, he built a bank from scratch, a neobank, and moved over from the old stack, which was failing and crumbling, onto a new stack. And now that bank, which is called Space International, has morphed into TBC Uzbekistan, and they have over 20 million users that they got in just under 2 years. So incredible tech chops. He also was the head of IT for the largest auto company, with the largest dealerships, with the secondary parts and e-commerce and all that kind of stuff, and also a strong background in governmental federal technologies. So from my background, from Zura's background, we bring essentially a whole host of arsenal of understanding of different skills that are required, the processes and methodologies, what works and what doesn't work when it comes to change management. And so we can provide a much better holistic view. As I mentioned, was originally something that we did less of, but now we do much more of, understanding how the business is in the grand scheme of things, not just what this small project is that needs to be done, but understanding actually what is the best approach to make sure that you are achieving the objectives you're going for. And on top of that, we were able to layer in the benefits of being able to use worldwide remote talent. So we hire from over 13 countries now, not just Georgia, but East Europe. And we've also done from Latin America for our American clients, because they want some people in the same time zone. And we found that actually, again, this extra level of being able to find the right talent is often something that businesses struggle with. So with our interview techniques and the actually hosting technical interviews with our chief architects, who's got decades of experience across banking and different industries, suddenly the clients are able to benefit from that. So those are the main differences, I would say, between Concept Digital
Yeah,
and other consultancies out there.
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And for example, I have a curiosity. So when you talk to potential clients, what's the biggest misconception they typically have about what you do?
It's quite hard to explain to them in simple terms, because we are very broad, and we do not just digital transformation, but we build the digital products. And then within building digital products, we do not just pure projects, but also helping them with staffing. Sometimes it's hard to explain everything that's feasible, but we provide all of those reasons because we understand that actually a holistic approach means that we can be more bespoke to them to provide them exactly what they need. And it means that they can then trust, once we've defined exactly what the missing gap is in their technological capabilities, we can help fill that gap, and they don't need to worry about running off. And then, there's many issues that people find struggling to find the right agency. A lot of these people sometimes are not as responsible as they should be. And so once we have a good client relationship, they know that they can trust us not only with understanding their gaps, but filling those gaps. So, yeah, kind of communicating that vision is something that is an ongoing challenge, but something that we're working on.
Okay, interesting. And for example, what was your first major success story with a client, and what changed for them after working with you?
Yeah, so I mean, our very first client was a great success. They were able to raise 5 million euros off the back of the MVP that we built. So that was definitely one of the good early success stories. And then more recently, we've helped, for example, the largest pharmacy chain in an East European country with a warehouse optimization problem. So they realized that they were spending hours and hours blocked because of certain issues with how things were located and how the technology was actually figuring out where the different parts were for delivering to their branches. And so we helped solve that. And then the most interesting large project that we're working on right now is actually for a national bank, again, in East Europe, helping them with a crypto KYC project. So it's many different elements happening there. Know your customer, anti-money laundering, crypto elements, banking at an international federal level. So super exciting, huge project, and that will have knock-on effects for the region for a while. So super
Yeah,
excited for how that project's going to turn out. We're already halfway through, and we should be finishing towards the end of the year.
yeah, it sounds incredible. And now, looking at the broader industry, what key trends are you seeing emerge?
Of course, the big one is AI. Everybody's talking about AI, and I think rightfully so. We've already done a few. We actually did an AI project even before ChatGPT was a thing. So we did a very interesting one for the National Farmers Association. We built an app that was educational, but the interesting part was a module where farmers could enter the plot of land they had, how big it was, the longitude, latitude, the location, the pH of the soil, a bunch of different input metrics, and we were able to combine that with different public and private data sets, run that through a random forest model, which uses machine learning to give them the recommendation for the most profitable crop for them to plant on their land. So, a really cool implementation of that. And post LLMs, we've done more things related to kind of like text and business processes. So, things like a recruiting bot, which scraped and analyzed the CV of candidates and then would figure out where the gaps were so that then a screening agent could essentially ask them the right incisive questions to figure out, for example, what kind of leadership style they liked and disliked, which often doesn't appear in the CV,
Yeah,
and goes through deeply to help the screen the candidates against certain job profiles much more clearly. So that's an interesting use case. And another one was a content creation for SEO purposes, but for niche industries. So one of our clients is Halo Carbon, one of the largest chemicals manufacturers in the US. They have an interesting product because it's often used in very niche specific scientific use cases. So things like niobium machining or titanium machining, which
yeah,
is very hard to find in the 2000s, an article writer who can write about that kind of stuff. But now, thanks to LLMs, that's possible. But simply generating an article is not going to have the success you want to see in SEO as you need, because Google often penalizes pure obvious AI stuff. So we made ways to humanize the text as one layer, and then the second layer was actually infusing proprietary data about halocarbon products. So that is very naturally essentially product placement within the article, and then cross links to the third layer to different areas on the site to maximize the benefit to the page rank and the authority that Google sees it with. So another super interesting use case that we were able to do with AI LLMs. We're now working as well on a bunch of different AI agents. One internally, where we're actually writing our proposals, the initial drafts with AI, and then of course adding a human touch. But what we found is actually human in the loop is still critical right now. We found 0% AI is super slow, 100% AI is often slop, and so you need to find a perfect balance. And this kind of the bell curve is going to shift right as time goes on, but it's very important right now that you have humans understanding,
yeah.
reading, proofreading, and improving these things before they go out into live production.
Exactly, exactly. But you mentioned an interesting thing. So, how are you approaching AI content creation while avoiding the Google penalties?
Yes, absolutely. So there's multiple ways and things that you need to do to make that work. So the first step is not just generate basic content, but humanize it. So there's certain things that will make it giveaways. For example, the M dash is a giveaway. There's certain words that AI uses way more than normal humans, which is like delve and a few others. So remove any AI artifacts is the first step. And then the second step, which is really critical, is actually the infusion of proprietary information that LLMs wouldn't normally have into the text. So, for example, what we did with Halo Carbon was we took their whole knowledge base, we understood exactly where the different products fit in different parts of the text, whatever the article is about, and then used a retrieval augmented generation RAG to essentially include those pieces of words, the pieces of text from the proprietary information into the article. Now, suddenly when Google looks at that, they're like, oh, I never indexed for Halo Carbon MWF24 or whatever the product is that is mentioned. And so suddenly they know that it can't really be AI generated, even though it is actually partially. And so those kind of things, and then cross-linking across different websites means that search engines don't suspect essentially any funny behavior, and there's not really any funny behavior. It's just using AI to augment the human written. And of course, we have humans proofread it in the end to make sure there's nothing silly or untoward or incorrect written in the articles.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. And in your opinion, what advice would you give to companies looking to implement AI solutions?
Step one is begin with a lighthouse project, similar to the advice from McKinsey, essentially a first project, a POC, a proof of concept where you can prove at a basic level that something works and can benefit, even though it probably is not business ready and going to create value immediately. Begin with that small project, because if you're not doing that, you're going to fall behind. And if you are doing that, it's a great way to minimize the risk of spending hundreds of thousands and then realizing that actually this doesn't solve the problem that you need it to solve.
Yeah.
So begin with a proof of concept is absolutely the first thing that all businesses should be trying to think of ways they can do that, and potentially working with partners like ourselves to help you do that.
Okay, interesting advice. And it sounds like you're ahead of the curve in many ways, which make me curious about your growth plan. So, how are you looking to grow in the next year?
Great question. So AI is a huge part of this. So we want to ideally productize or maybe fully make into a product the AI agents that we see coming up again and again. So that's one area that we're thinking of growing. And then the other area, of course, is our enterprise consulting side, where we want to expand further and further broader. So we have already advanced discussions with huge banks in Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan in Central Asia, but we want to again offer those great opportunities to East Europe and West Europe too. And so those will be the next areas for growth for Concept Digital.
Okay, interesting. And basically, what's your North Star metric right now instead of growth?
The North Star metric for us is essentially providing great value for our clients. So we want to see for every project that we're doing, we want to understand the business objectives of the client, and then that becomes the North Star metric for that project. And then overall, we try to understand, are we achieving success for our clients across each of our projects? That's what is important to us, and that's what's driving us every day.
Okay, interesting. And before we wrap up, I'm curious about what's on the horizon. So, when you look at Concept Digital journey over the next few years, what possibilities excite you the most?
Oh, everything. I think there's so much exciting stuff going on. And I've always found that I can't really predict where I'll be in 2 years' time with my career. There's been so many interesting new developments happening. I think I'd be surprised if AI isn't part of it. I think that's, of course, generative AI. I think there's a lot of going to be interesting applications in the healthcare space. So I'm trying to explore that as well. So using AI in healthcare. But really, I think I don't want to box myself in. Really, I'm leaving myself open to the opportunities that come.
Interesting, yeah. And for listeners who want to learn more or potentially work with Concept Digital, what's the best way to get in touch?
Absolutely. So you can find us on our website, conceptdigital.com, just directly. And you can also book a call with us as an appointment booking call. And please feel free to add me on LinkedIn as well. I'm very happy to chat to people. You can slide into my DMs. We can also arrange a call. It's Tengo Meskhi, TengoMeskhi. And feel free to add me, and I'd be happy to chat with anybody who has any questions or is interested in doing their own POC project.
Yeah. So thanks for joining to me today, Tango, and for this amazing podcast session. And for anyone listening, make sure to check out Content Digital socials below in the description because this episode was packed with value and I can't wait to see what you build next.
Thank you very much, Alexander. It's been a pleasure. Have a great day, guys.
Yeah. You too. Have a great day.